Chris Miller and Phil Lord. I'm old enough to remember when the Afterparty was supposed to be a movie like 10 years ago. So what would the film version of the Afterparty have looked like, and how did you go about adapting it for TV?
I don't think it would have been as good as the series version. One thing about it, when it was something I wrote 10, 11 years ago now, and it was a fun script, doing a Rashomon comedy murder mystery. But the issue was that when we looked at it again, each person's story only gets 7 minutes in a movie version. You need to be under 2 hours. And so there wasn't quite enough time to really dig deep into the characters and get to empathize with them and have fun with how they tell the stories. And so the idea of breaking it up into a series where you could really have each character have their own episode and really dig in for each actor was a real breakthrough for us. And I think it really opened the show up to be its best self and let each episode be super different and give you time to empathize and tell a fuller story with more style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Were there a lot of huge changes? Are there most of the characters still the same from the film version?
Yeah, there are a lot of changes. I mean, there's a lot of things that are the same, but I think, we brought in a writing staff, and we sort of blew it up and put it back together. And a lot of the bits are the same, but something that was written in the early 2000s is going to need to change a little.
Chris, was there anything like turns of phrase or words that really seemed out of date?
What's funny to me is that there's a couple things that are still in the show that are a product of when it was originally written, like the fact that the Jennifers are called Jennifer. It was just like a name that was popular in our generation rather than in the 30-something.
Oh, I see.
Generation. Right. There's a couple of vestigial things like that.
Did people say awesome a lot and bro?
No. That's why you have ska in there, right?
Yeah, ska, but
there is definitely the ska part of it. Yeah,
ska is forever. That is true. Well, let's stand the test.
What wave are we in right now?
You're definitely fifth wave ska.
Yeah, it can come back. We don't know.
Yeah.
So. For sure.
It never left, baby. It never left.
I saw a legitimate wallet chain in the wild.
Wow.
2 days ago.
Wow.
That's terrifying.
Back.
Maybe it was a mirage. So
I know. I was so astounded that I went back into the restaurant to see if I was imagining it or not.
Did you take a picture of it?
I felt guilty. I felt weird doing this.
A picture of your wallet chain.
I thought about this, and I just didn't. I just took a mental picture.
This is the first clue of Ska's big return eventually.
There it is.
It's here.
Step one.
It's also proof we're in a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So spoiler alert, I guess, anyone watching this who has not seen the show, but Jasper is the killer. So was he always the killer, I guess?
Jasper was always the killer from the beginning. And, so while a lot of the details and all the characterizations evolved, the clockwork of the mystery remained the same, because that is, it's sort of, the characters were named A, B, C, D, W, X, Y, Z, Anik, Brett, Chelsea, Danner, Walt, Xavier, Jasper, Zoe, so that we could work out, the math of how, A would accuse B, B would accuse C, C would go back to accusing A, and so on. It was almost like a math equation of how the structure of the movie and the show would work, and that framework stayed the same, but a lot of the specifics and a lot of the and also when we cast it, writing to who we cast, and then the actors themselves would help develop, what their tone and what their voice would be like. And so I think it really evolved a lot along the way.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys ever consider doing the Clue ending with a different version, or multiple versions?
I have a very hot take on that. Which is, first of all, we both love Clue. We talk about Clue a lot. and it's a wonderful movie with some of our favorite actors in it, and it was a seminal piece of work for us. But I was frustrated with the concept of Clue when I watched it as a kid, which was they told you that there was no right answer. They told you that it could be you might get one of a bunch of different endings, and so what's the point in trying to solve the mystery if it's kind of arbitrary whodunit? Like, what's fun about a whodunit to me is that you watch it and you try and look for the clues along the way and solve the mystery, so that you're like, I knew it. I knew there was something about that paper that he crumpled up that didn't match up, and then, or you can go like, oh, I should have seen it. But when you say, oh, any ending is possible, then that the fun of that game of trying to solve it and trying to be curious goes away. So there's my hot take.
Okay.
I'd say we say that as huge fans of the film.
Exactly.
Clue, who appreciate how funny it is. But it is true that, like, in most comedies, the plot is not very important. The character relationship stories are super important. Witness the Jump Street movies, who have very rudimentary, some would say infantile plots. But the parlor game of watching a murder mystery has to deliver on that. That's literally a parlor mystery. So is this, and they have to deliver on that. Otherwise, you do feel ripped off.
Yeah, I remember watching Clue as a child and seeing the multiple endings. I was like, which one? Because I also used to read the books and I have to answer. Right. I'm like, so which one is right? And I found out years later that theatrically they released different endings.
Yeah, in the different
when
theater.
You're trying to see two different versions.
You had to go to a different theater to see it. And as it turned out, people didn't go to the theater in the first place, let alone a second.
Drive across town to see the other theaters.
Yeah, but I did. I saw it twice in the theater because I just liked that they were
the same ending,
silly things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know what the writer's room was like, because you guys, we see scenes from different perspectives and in different genres, but I think what's great about the show is that we also learn a new piece of information about these characters, or like they're all supposed to reveal something to advance the mystery or the plot. And so I feel like that's like a puzzle in itself of how to like seed the different perspectives. So how did that affect you guys in the writer's room, like structure and everything? Like, is this the right order to put these
which episodes go in which order, and what happens in reality? It was a lot of brains were melting a lot, and it was
we had 8 different writers' rooms, one for each. So.
we did have it takes a special kind of brain to hold the whole thing in your head. And we had the first third of the writer's room was in person, and it had a bit of a Beautiful Mind vibe in the office, because there was this one giant timeline of like what really happened when and where everybody was at each of those moments. We're like, this is where the shrimp X knocks over, and who's where when this happened, and then this is when this event happens, and who's where this happened, and we assigned like times of the night for all of that stuff, and it kept changing. And then we had all these other whiteboards of like, here's this person's perspective of all the moments, and here's this person's perspective of all the moments. It doesn't line up. And then when you have a new idea, and you're like, ooh, what if we did this in episode 4? Then you're like, now we got to go back into episode 1 and episode 2 and episode 6 and make those things all true up with each other. And so we called it a Jenga tower, where you could like make one change and the whole thing would fall over. And it took a lot of crazy brain power and making a lot of mistakes to get there, but it was worth it. It was a really fun, and it had a lot of camaraderie, even though we switched over to Zoom a third of the way through, and we couldn't have all the crazy boards around, and we had to use our brain holes to remember it.
Brain hole.
You can still have camaraderie on Zoom, Chris, just like we were having right now.
Yeah. So much camaraderie.
This is real right now. Yeah.
Yes, I can feel the energy. I feel it.
Well, what kind of ideas did you come up with that you couldn't do because you had to maintain continuity?
It wasn't anything that interesting, but you could just be like, oh, what if she goes outside and does this thing? And you're like, oh, well, she can't go outside because she has to be here to witness this thing in the other person's story, remember? And you're like, oh, that's right. Freaking show. And you couldn't, and in editing it, it was the same thing. You had like, you couldn't just edit an episode and then send it away. You had to wait till you had edited a version of every episode to make sure that they all work together, and that if you wanted to cut a scene, you're like, well, can I cut the scene because we need it for the other episode. And so it was like making a very long and complicated film.
Mm-hmm. I love the music in episode 3, but I think we don't talk enough about the music in High School.
Yes.
2006. The needle drops are everything. We get like Ryden, the middle, Hips Don't Lie.
Yeah, you gotta get that Shakira in there.
Boom by POD during the fight was perfection.
Yes.
Can you talk about selecting those songs for that episode?
Oh yeah,
It's putting Shakira in things is contractual.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Our Sony deal,
we worked with Keir Lehman, who has been a music supervisor. We worked on the Jump Street movies with, on Spider-Verse and all sorts of things. He's one of the best in the business, and it was such a fun assignment to go like, okay, here it is, St. Patrick's Day 2006. So anything from the mid to early 2000s is fair game, as long as it was released by February 2006. And we decided to sort of blow most of our music budget on that episode because, it was one of those things where every party in the mid 2000s had Hey Ya playing. And so we're like, well, if it's this, that will feel very authentic to the moment. But that, songs like that are not free. But finding things to say right at the beginning, like, oh, this is a different era. But also like just getting to have some fun with it, because you're at a house party. We tried a bunch of things on that fight, and that one had the right energy and the right sort of misplaced anger to fit with the moment of the scene.
It's so good because the fight is so bad too.
It really is the worst fight ever recorded. And what was great about that fight was I just said to Sam and to Dave, like, you both want to fight, but neither of you has ever been in a fight, and you both are afraid to fight, and you're really bad at it. And they went off and like choreographed something together. They worked on all the beats of it together. Then we'll do this, then we'll do this, then we'll do this. And they just came onto the yard and were like, okay, here's what we have. And it was so sublime. It was like, this is why you work with geniuses, and they make you look good.
It's
because
really the Sound of Music move.
Yes, when they spin around and don't touch each other. It really, the sound of all of us laughing just off camera, we had to sort of edit around, but it was great.
Well, the 6th episode is animation. I feel like you guys just had to do an animated episode, and Phil, you co-wrote it. And the style is very reminiscent to me of Mitchell's versus the Machines style. So how did you guys approach that episode?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of that is Lindsay Olivares, who did the design of that episode, who's the production designer on Mitchell's. So that's why it has that vibe. Her drawings have so much personality. I think it was a really good fit for Zoe and what we imagine her art style to be. I don't know, it was a lot of fun. We wrote with our friend Rachel, who's worked with us a long time. It's her first screenwriting credit officially with the Guild. So that was really fun to do. It's like it was like a pandemic treat, because I feel like it was like the first few months, and it was no one was seeing each other. So I got to spend a bunch of time with her virtually.
And what's really fun about it is like you're taking advantage of the medium of animation to sort of have the multiple Zoes. The fact that she was able to have these distinct character voices for each of them and sort of switch back and forth between them and have a conversation with herself, but you always knew who it was that was talking, was really amazing. It was a great way to get like a window into her character, who up until that point had sort of been a bit of like manic pixie dream girl that you didn't quite know what was really going on with her. And so it was a really great way to peek into her internal conflict that was happening. But,
Yeah, it's like edgy, like slightly deranged.
yes, is she crazy? Is she moving?
Yeah, and put a little suspicion on her, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
because she was the popular suspect.
Yeah, she was probably the most popular suspect. It went like Zoe, Walt, and then Jasper as far as how as general public suspicion, and then Culp probably after that, which is hilarious to me.
Just a huge Xavier fanboy.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and I think the really crazy thing about that was that it was a totally separate production pipeline, right? You had to set up, with an animation studio, but you couldn't start until after we started shooting because we needed to have all of the cast in their costumes and know exactly what their costumes and their hair was going to look like, so that we could do the proper caricatures, so we could do the character designs, and that the sets had to be built and designed, and we didn't know what the blocking was in the other episodes. So we would just take photos of the scenes as we were shooting them for other episodes, and then send them to the animation team going like, this is what it looks like in the other version of this scene, in episode 1 version of this scene, so like make the blocking look like this. And so the storyboard artists would work off of that, and the background designers would design it to look exactly like the way that the sets were. So that was going on continuously, and usually in animation it takes like a year and a half to make an episode of animated television. We had 9 months to do it, so it was really rushed, but they did a great job considering how fast it was.
Yeah, for sure. So when are we getting a Private Eyes film and a Hungry Hungry Hippos film?
The Private Eyes film has been much discussed.
I talked to Dave and he's all in.
All in. No, everybody wants to do it. I think it would be so fun. I think the trick would be getting Hall and Oates on board.
Unauthorized biopic.
Yeah,
or a Guerrilla. I do love a Guerrilla biopic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The other thing that's important to us is that it's written by Xavier and Channing Tatum.
But it's their vanity project that they.
It's their vanity project
This
that
is
they
their
are
bubble.
writing and producing,
Right.
and that it's basically like half of it is the movie, and the other half is a like Lost in La Mancha style documentary about
why the movie kind of.
and why they and like struggling to get the rights for the songs, I think.
Yes.
So like and having to make up Hall and Oates songs.
Yeah, they
that
do
are not
rip-offs. It's
quite
like
the
that they
songs.
sound close
Yeah.
enough. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
We are huge Hall and Oates fans, and I feel like their discography is pretty great. The number of hits they've got is surprisingly staggering.
We have deep respect
Yes.
for H&O and the catalog as buddies who met in school.
That's right.
Who formed a creative partnership and
Where
worked in
one's
many
got
different styles.
Where one's
And
got
even-
curly hair, one's got straight hair, and listen,
One has and they also like they have all those hits that we know about. They also made like a concept album with Todd Rundgren that's like about war. I think it's a double album that's super far out. They have a deep back catalog.
For sure.
Hits.
Yeah. So you guys, you're currently filming season 2 now. What we know, it's at a wedding.
It's
What
true.
can you tease?
I can tease that it is not Zoe and Anik's wedding. It is another person.
I think a lot of people think it is.
I know, but now I'm here to drop that news.
Scoop.
I know, exclusive. Here we go.
Exclusive. It is not Zoe and Anik's wedding. They are attending a wedding where murder happens. What else can I tell you? This cast is incredible.
Stacked.
that is not really a behind the scenes scoop, but it turns out when once again, if you hire really great, talented, funny actors, they make things really come alive, and they make you look good. So that has been true again. What else? Is there anything else that we can say, Phil?
Can you say if you're going to repeat any genres in season 2, or is it?
It is, okay, we will say that we see Anik tells a story again, and it's sort of a sequel, a rom-com sequel.
Okay. Is it raining emotionally again?
That does not happen again, but we do have all new genres for everybody else. And there's more that we wanted to do, but we just didn't, couldn't fit them in.
Season 3.
So, yes. So it's we go a little bit farther this time with some of the genre stuff. So yeah.
Well, lastly, this is a request from Ben Schwartz, because
Yes.
I asked you this. Can you spell diarrhea?
Can I spell diarrhea? Yeah. Yes. Well, O is in the British spelling, but in the American spelling, it's Diarrhea. And then with the British spelling, there's an O in there somewhere.
Oh,
just throw a couple of O's in there. Yeah, they always, they add those U's to color and stuff. They're always throwing
like
vowels
favorites.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
They've got an excess of vowels there. They got to dump them out somewhere.
Yeah. Well, you got it correct. Dave also got it correct. Sam did not get it correct.
There you go. It is hard. It's hard to spell, and that's the kind of classy show this is. That points out how.
What is the diarrhea of season 2?
What's another word that
there's no
a network wouldn't want us to say a bunch of times?
No, there's nothing quite like that in season 2. We've got our own. Here's another piece of. I think there's a lizard. There's a dog and a lizard in the show.
There you go.
And a horse. There's a horse, a dog, and a lizard. There's a lot of animals in this season.
Nice.
Yeah. How many of them are the killer?
Well, now we're getting into real spoilers. I don't want to say.
That's too much now. This is enough. This is a good tease.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time, and I can't wait for the After Party Meets Zoo season 2. Apparently, so
there you go. Can't wait for you to see it. Thanks again.